Hello everyone, my name is Alex. I'm a 2000 rated over-the-board chess player, and in this series we're going from 1500 to 2000 Elo in chess.com rapid games, where I'll be explaining my thought process as best as I can for your education and entertainment. Today we have a Caro Kann, and my opponent goes for the advanced variation. Normally I play c5, known as the Botvinnik Karl's defense, but I have recently been trying to learn the bishop to f5 lines a bit better, so we'll play bishop f5 today. Okay, opponent immediately offers me a trade of bishops, which I assume we have no choice but to accept. I mean, we could drop back to g6 as well, but I feel like we're just inviting h4, h5, so we probably should just take the bishop. I think this is actually what I used to play with white, but this seems very nice. I mean, just we've effectively gotten a French defense, except the light squared bishops are off the board, which theoretically should favor black, right? Because we get this light squared stronghold without the issue of our light squared bishop. But okay, white's development is a little bit quicker than ours, so that's the trade off. And I suppose we should be trying to play the move c5 as soon as possible. I mean, if we play c5 right now, then queen b5 check. Now we have queen d7, actually. No, c5 makes a lot of sense. c5 take. Won't be able to take back with a bishop because queen b5 check. But then, like, knight c7 take. Is that actually that good? Okay, plays it immediately. So, of course, queen d7 defends the pawn and blocks the check. And this just seems like a very good line for us. We'll take with the knight to support c5 and apply pressure to e5. And then I think what I'll do is I'll rotate this knight probably to the c6 square to kind of replace where this knight would normally go on c6. We could put it on f5, but then we could get hit with g4, which would be annoying. We can take whenever we want. White doesn't really want to take us because it leaves his e-pawn very weak. Let's go knight c6. Now if white were to take, we could actually just take the e-pawn rather than the c-pawn if we wanted to. Yeah, the plan of g5, g4 looks interesting, but of course, for now, it would just blunder a pawn. Okay, bishop e3. This isn't a threat. You can't take this. Well, you can take that, but it just seems to help our position, because again, the pawn would be very weak at the end of the line. So I think starting with rook c8 makes a lot of sense to me, just because I want to give him the opportunity to take. Okay, he's going to go knight bd2, which makes sense. So I suppose we should just go bishop to e7, right? A move like c4 here doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Taking also doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, because we want white to take us, or we want to take at a time where it is clearly very good, and we can win some kind of material, potentially. And kind of the whole idea of this structure is to say to white, like, okay, this connect 4 structure is very nice looking and all. However, if we take on d4 and you have to take back with your pawn, then the d pawn is going to be very weak because we break up the pawn chain, right? In the same manner, if you take on c5 and we take back, then you have yourself broken up the pawn chain, and your e-pawn is going to suffer immensely because it can't be protected by the d-pawn. In some lines, the pawn comes to f4 to rectify that problem, but it's not that easy sometimes. So okay, I like the look of the move b5, just taking space. On the queen side, a5 also looks good. We could try and double up, maybe. An option. An option. If my opponent goes knight to b3, we're going to have to decide what to do with this pawn. And the answer is probably to take. You could take straight away, which I think I'm leaning more towards because I like the look of the move knight b4, getting into the light squares. And we also should be probably winning the c-file now. Also, I do think that my opponent should have taken with the knight. That's kind of what I was expecting him to do. But yeah, this is just a free pawn. Take, take, take. Rook here, knight back, rook takes, check, knight f1. Our rook is under attack there from the bishop. Okay, okay. What else can we do? We could take. After pawn takes, knight takes on a2. If rook a1, we can take on c3. And if rook here... Not that simple. Maybe it's easier just to play a6 to get rid of the weakness. If a6 and my opponent doubles up, take, take, take. Then there's rook c7. Rook c3 is a good move. We could play take, take, knight to d3, rook to b1, hitting our b pawn, knight to b6. Preparing rook c8 to go after the c pawn is an option. Here, 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 here. Trying to find a way to make this work. What else can we do? What else can we do? Oh, we could actually deliver a check with our rook and force the rooks off the board, and then we just up a pawn. Oh yeah, that looks really strong. Let's do that. Let's do that. So that way we just end up a pawn up. Okay, well, the whole point was that you couldn't play that because my bishop controls a3. That was kind of the idea. So that's just a free rook. And that's a very quick game. Yeah. The bishop f5 Caro. I don't play it a whole lot, but damn, it worked. It did certainly work. And it incorporated many of the same ideas of the c5 Caro Kann as well. Advanced Caro Kann, of course. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that game. If you did, please drop a like and subscribe. Let's get into the analysis, see what the engine has to say. Okay, I mean, 97.6% accuracy certainly is not bad. My opponent with 83.8. Let's jump into it. So e4, c6, d4, d5, e5. Now, I normally play the c5 lines here, and it's quite interesting, but there are some ways for white to take and hold on to the pawn that can be quite frustrating for black. And a lot of the people that watch my channel, I know you guys like the bishop f5 line, so I've been trying to learn it because I can see the appeal. I definitely can. So bishop f5. My opponent goes bishop d3. This is a very unambitious way to play, I'll say. h4, I think, is, this is the tile variation, trying to trap the bishop. So let's say we play a lazy move like e6, then we just get our bishop trapped. Like, white occupies all of our bishop's squares. So, that's definitely the better way to play, in my opinion. But my opponent offers me a trade, I accept it, play e6, and we, like I said, get the ideal sort of French, essentially. So knight f3, c5 is the best move. The thing is, there's not really any other good moves. I mean, we want to put this knight on c6 most likely. We can't do that. This bishop wants to go to e7, but that would block the development of the knight. This knight wants to go to e7, but if we put the knight on e7, we can't play c5 because our bishop can't see c5. And we don't really want to put the knight on f5 too early. The computer recommends c4 here for white, but I thought, oh no, g4, knight h4, supported by the queen. But c5 is the best move. My opponent goes queen b5 check, and we're already slightly better. Taking... I didn't... Oh, no, we can take. I was calculating this line and trying to figure out if this was good for us or not. The engine says knight e7, castles, castles, let's say knight c3, knight f5. The engine just thinks that we're better despite being down a pawn, which is interesting. But my opponent goes queen b5 check. By the way, if takes, we also don't have to take with the bishop. I was considering queen a5 check, but the engine doesn't like it. Realistically, we were just going to have to trust that this was viable. Which, to be fair, even if we play an inaccurate move like this, we're still doing fine. So queen b5, queen d7. My opponent takes, and we take with the knight to defend our pawn. c3, we go knight to e7, because... I mean, there's nowhere else that good to put the knight. The engine likes h5. Why? Oh, well, it's a common idea to play h5 so that when knight f5 is played, there's no g4. But I thought that that was unnecessary because we could put the knight on c6 instead, and we accomplished the same goal. I think the reason the engine likes the knight on f5 is because it targets the bishop on e3, so it adds another layer to the pressure, I suppose. But okay, knight e7, castles, knight c6, bishop e3. We're just slightly better this whole time. We're just better. Like, nothing major, but we are the ones in control because we have the pressure. White does not have the pressure. White can't take. You can see that taking is horrific. Like, bishop takes, knight takes. All these light squares are incredibly weak. And we saw in the game how the light squares became weak after knight to b4. The knight bd2, bishop e7, rook ac1 is inaccurate, castles is inaccurate. Taking is better. Why? Knight b6. I can't really come to c4. Let's say my opponent tries to double up. Ah, it wants king d7. That makes sense. The king is better on d7. Yeah. Okay. The reason I didn't do that is because I thought the knight was good on d7. And technically, we can't play knight b6 here because then we give the c5 pawn. The engine finds the solution of liquidating the pawn, then moving the knight to give the king the d7 square, which is smart because it's an engine. But okay, we castle, which is fine. Rook fe1. The rook isn't really doing anything on the e-file. The engine prefers it on d1, which makes sense. But okay, rook fe1, cd4, cd4, and knight to b4. And we're making a lot of threats. The move the engine wants to play is rook e to d1. Really? And if this, then it wants rook a1, and if knight b4, rook a7, white has good counterplay, but very hard to play a move like that. I mean, we don't have to commit to anything. We can just play like b5, a5, and if you exchange, then I have the c-file. This is miserable. The engine wants knight e1. Like, how are you going to tell me? And then knight d to f3, I mean... Yeah, okay, that's never getting played. My opponent went rook to c3. I took on a2. And my opponent gave me his rook and then resigned. The line I expected him to play was rook c8, rook c8, rook a1. And here I was concerned, because rook c1 check is the only move to hold the advantage. The second best move, which is what I originally saw, was knight to b4. And as you can see, we're only mildly better now. After rook takes a7, rook c1 isn't a particularly good move, because after knight f1, our rook is under attack, and our only option is rook back to c7. And while we're slightly better here, this is certainly not what I wanted. So, I was expecting rook takes, rook a1, rook c1 check, and then after take, we're just up a clean pawn. Let's say like king f1, knight b6, knight b1, knight b3, knight c3, knight c4. We're just absolutely dominating this position. It's not even close. Like, these pawns are so weak because the pawn chain has been broken apart by this exchange on d4. So that's what I was expecting. Now, what other options are there for white after knight a2? The engine wants rook b3. Even then, I can just go rook c7. And if you do this, then knight c1. Wow, okay. That's a move. Hitting the rook, so rook b5, a6. The rook is almost trapped. Almost. Very almost. Yeah, that is so miserable. But we didn't get that. My opponent gave me his rook. We obviously took it. And if he were to play on, I mean, I can just force more trades. And there is just nothing for white to do. He can't defend his queenside pawns. And he has no counterplay because our pawns are so incredibly strong and safe, which is one of the main points of the Caro Kann. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a shorter one, but hopefully it exemplifies why the Caro Kann is great and why I should probably pay more attention to the bishop to f5 line, which, like I said, I'm trying my best to learn. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see another very interesting Caro Kann game, check out the video up here. If you want to see the previous episodes of the speedrun, check out the playlist down there. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in one of those.